Hello guys, this is Freak the Man and this is my build guide for Spectral Helix Raider using Trinity Support. This is the skill that I started Expedition League in Path of Exile and found great success using it. Since Spectral Helix has a really high damage effectiveness, you just need to stack elemental damage throughout all your gear and you do a massive amount of damage. While this build does a lot of damage, it is also quite tanky. We are playing as Raiders, so we have phasing and onslaught on a permanent base. We also use dodge, stack evasion and are elusive when dealing critical strikes. Due to Avatar of the Veil, we are also 50% immune to elemental ailments. We also path on our tree, so we can get another 50% chance to avoid elemental ailments, making us immune to freeze, ignite and shock. This build though is quite battle intensive, so make sure it fits your playstyle. We move from pack to pack using Whirling Blades, using Vigilant Strike to grant Fortify for 11 seconds, and we use Static Strike to grant power charges, linking it to power charge on crit. In this build guide, I will show you how I made this character. I started leveling with it, and now I'm level 95 and doing pretty much all the game content. I will show you guys what are the core pieces of the build, the Ascendancy choice, order and the passive tree. I will also show the skill gems that I use and my gear. I will also leave some options for your gears so you can be flexible. At the end of the video I will show a clip of my Awakening 8 Sirus skill, so you guys can see that this build has a huge bossing potential. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe to my channel so I can get your feedback and make other build guides as well. In this build we play Raider and go for Avatar of Veil for helping with ailment immunity and give us triple exposure against enemies, and Avatar of Chase granting us permanent onslaught and boosted onslaught effect. These are both offensive and defensive options, making Raider the most solid Ascendancy for Spectral Helix. You could even go with Avatar of Slaughter for more damage and frenzy charges, but this would be a different build since you have to spec a lot more to minimum frenzy charges on the tree and thus a different setup. For Ascendancy order, go first for Rapid Assault, then Quartz Infusion, Avatar of the Veil, and lastly, get Avatar of the Chase. Our passive tree is very straightforward as any other Raider build. You start with Evasion and Life, go for Heart of Oak and Primal Spirit, then you can go to Acrobatics, Phase Acrobatics, and Wind Dancer. These are very generic notes and notables and can be used in any Raider build. Keep in mind that the rest of your tree will vary according to what skill you are using to level 2 maps. I used Crouching Tuna's Toxic Rain Ballistas, which I will link in the description. Since my build is already using cluster jewels and it's a very endgame setup, I will post my path of building with 3 different versions of builds. One for early maps, another one for when you reach endgame around level 90 without cluster jewels, and finally my cluster jewels setup. My chest piece have frenzy charges on hit and attack critical strike chance. This is a very light game chest and not mandatory at all. You could go with like a generic life evasion resistance chest piece, or do what I did before this and use Impulse's Broken Heart unique, using 5 or 6 links to help you clear. Late game wise though, you will want a crafted chest piece, so keep that in mind. For our helmet, we are using Blizzard Crown and it's a great helmet since it adds a lot of cold damage to your attacks. The downside is negligible to us since we use Trinity and have cold, lightning and fire damage, and even physical to your attacks. You want life and resist there. Accuracy is a really solid stat as well, since we need accuracy to Spectral Helix. If you want to go for an helmet enchant, go for the +1 rotation to Spectral Helix. Increased damage is also cool. If you don't have enough currency to craft Blizzard's Crown, Star Conjure's Head is a solid unique for this build. If you want, you can use a generic rare helmet with life and a lot of resistance, so you could be more offensive in other pieces of this build. For our boot slot, I used 3-step assault for pretty much all my map progression, and honestly it's a great choice. I only swapped it recently because I was needing more resistance, and I went with a boot with a lot of evasion, life, 30% movement speed. Late game wise, we will want tailwind boots with movement speed, and life would be also great to have. These can be quite expensive, so trying to craft one could be very beneficial, but not that easy. For our gloves slot, using gripped gloves with added elemental damage, life and resistance is great. In case you cannot afford good gripped gloves, going with rare gloves with added elemental damage to attacks, life and resistance will be enough. For our belt slot, you should go for a Stygian Vise with life, resistance, and increased elemental damage is great as well. Increased Flask charges gained is also huge this league, but they are not that easy to get alongside our main stats, so this is considered a luxury stat. The Abyssal Jewel we will use with our Stygian Vise should have at least 28 life and some added elemental damage. The more, the better and more expensive. If you can get a jewel with chance to blind, will improve our defenses by a lot, since we are already a dodge and evasion based build. If you cannot afford a good Stygian Vise, go for a leather belt with even more life and resists, and you can then prioritize Flask charge gained and even more increased elemental damage. For our weapon slot, we want a high attack speed claw with a lot of added elemental damage. Critical strike chance is great, and critical strike multiplier is even better but could be more expensive. Claws could be very expensive, so make sure to check Path of Building to see what is the best version for your build. What I usually do is checking Path of Exile trait for a claw with at least 1.9 APS and 250 elemental DPS. For shields, you will want a huge amount of evasion, life and elemental resistances. You can even go for a chance to avoid elemental ailments on it, but it's a matter of preference. Added elemental damage to attacks could be also a great option, making this shield slot a great and very flexible slot for our build. On your amulet slot, you want mainly life, added elemental damage and at least 20% global critical strike multiplier. The more the better and more expensive. You will also use this slot to get the attributes you need in this build. You usually want intelligence and strength, since we are pathing near the ranger area and this is mainly focused on dexterity. The ring slots are very flexible. Opal rings are a decent offensive option and vermilion rings are more defensive. Focus on added elemental damage to attacks and resistance, and also some life. You could go for stats like attack speed, accuracy, increased elemental damage, but you should mainly focus on life, added elemental damage and resistances. If you do not want to manually cast Assassin's Mark, you should go for Assassin's Mark on Hit Ring, which could be crafted using an at least level 80 Shaper Influenced Ring and going for Reforged Caster on Harvest. Keep in mind that this Shaper Influenced Ring is great paired with Mark of the Elder Unique Ring, but it's a different setup. Our Spectral Helix setup uses Spectral Helix, increased critical strikes, inspiration, Nightblade, Trinity Support, and added lightning damage. I am using Awaken added lightning damage because it provides more damage, but it's not mandatory. It is still a nice upgrade if you have the currency for it. You could even swap increased critical strikes for added cold damage if it does more damage according to your path of building, so always check path of building before deciding what gem is better for your build. Keep in mind that inspiration does not need to be 20% quality. The other gems are quite good to have. If you can get Spectral Helix 20% quality, it's quite good because it scales really good with levels. For movement skills, we use Whirling Blades paired with Power Charge and Crit and faster attacks, so we can move more quickly and keep uptime on power charges, and Flame Dash. Flame Dash is used for quality of life to get off ledges and sometimes escaping mobs while we are movement impaired. For auras, we use Anger to help proc our Trinity Support, Precision to boost crit chance and accuracy which is needed with Spectral Helix, and Defiance Banner is a nice boost to our defenses. There are other setups using Herald of Ice, but I did not test it and cannot recommend this one. We use several utility gems. Blood Rage help us get frenzy charges while killing mobs and boosting our attack speed. Ancestral Protector helps our damage against bosses and paired with Culling Strikes adds 10% more damage as well across the board. Vigilant Strike grants us Fortify and it's a nice defensive boost. We use Static Strike paired with Power Charge and Crit to help us permanently have power charges, even on bosses. We also have Vol Haste and Sigil of Power to give a nice boost against bosses, but these are not needed as they are more quality of life than any other thing. And for Annointments for this build, we have a few decent options. I think Claws of the Falcon is the best in slot right now, as it provides a lot of damage. You can also go for Tenacity. It's a more defensive option than Claws of the Falcon, but it's more expensive since it uses 2 golden oils. True Strike is a decent option as well. It's cheaper than Tenacity and Claws of the Falcon and only represents a small damage loss. Jewels for this build, we want increased maximum life paired with offensive stats. The better offensive stat for this build is Global Crit Strike Multiplier, followed by attack speed, increased damage with one-handed weapons while holding claws or while holding shields. For our Flask setup, I am using 1 Life Flask removing Bleeding and Corrupted Blood on use, Vessel of Vinctar to greatly increase our damage, Overflowing Chalice to help us with gaining flask charges on maps, Jade Flasks of Reflexes to boost our evasion rating, and Diamond Flask to help us critical strike. This Flask setup uses Instilling Orb, so it can be used automatically while mapping. Vessel of Vinctar is used when charges reach full. Overflowing Chalice is used when charges reach full. Jade Flask is used when Adjacent Flask is used, and Diamond Flask is used when you hit a rare or unique enemy if not already in effect.
Yes.
Did you really think this would work?
Sirus, please, we want to help you. Don't do anything hasty.
Destroying you is as easy as flicking a pest.
No!
Sana!
Kirak!
How boring and small. You want the Atlas? Take it. It's yours. But Oriath, I will burn to the ground. Perhaps the suffering of my fellow citizens will finally stir something.
I'm not up to that just yet.
What's this? A real challenge? You've finally caught my attention. Die.
is nothing. Fury of the cosmos. Creation itself. Pointless. Obliteration. Rain of stars. You are nothing.
The others found strength in their projections. They became reliant on them. Not so foolish. Die.
Watch beauty crumble. Fury of the cosmos. Obliteration.
Like, really interesting enough to warrant all this pain.
I have seen
My
beyond.
mana is gone.
Why run? What's the point?
I'm not up to that just yet.
Stars.